fucking sucks!
What the hell?
So after making a dreary as fuck origin story for one of the world's greatest superheroes, then following it up with a clusterfuck combination of The Dark Knight Returns and the death of Superman, then producing one of the worst cinematic abortions known to man, then going back in time and telling the mind-numbingly boring backstory of another popular superhero, clearly the most logical course of action is make another crossover!
This is man's best hope.
Plans for an adaptation of the Justice League of America actually date back to 2007, not long after Joss Whedon's planned Wonder Woman film was canned, and before his planned Batgirl film was canned. But don't you worry, he'll get his revenge.
My point exactly.
In February 2007, Michelle and Kieran Mulroney were commissioned by Warner Brothers to write a screenplay, eventually titled Justice League Mortal. The studio was impressed with the script and immediately fast-tracked production, hoping that the film could begin shooting before the upcoming Writers Guild of America strike. Jason Reitman was originally asked to direct, but he turned the job down, feeling that he was more suited to small-scale independent films over big-budget blockbusters. Mad Max director George Miller was eventually selected to helm the project, with Barry Osborne of Lord of the Rings fame set to produce, and Peter Jackson's Weta Workshop set to work on the visual effects, all on a projected budget of $220 million.
Not enough.
Over the coming months, Miller and Osborne cast a number of established and up-and-coming actors in prominent roles, including Armie Hammer as Batman, DJ Catrona as Superman, Megan Gale as Wonder Woman, Santiago Cabrera as Aquaman, Adam Brody as The Flash, Common as Green Lantern, Hugh Keays-Byrne as Martian Manhunter, Teresa Palmer as Talia al Ghul, and Jay Baruchel as the film's villain Maxwell Lord. So let me get this straight. They wanted to do a big crossover film less than a year after Superman had just been rebooted, and halfway through Christian Bale's Batman trilogy, and before any of these other characters had even been introduced. Can these morons do anything right?
A creature of chaos.
However, the aforementioned writer's strike put the film's production on hold, and though things seemingly picked up again in February 2008 once the strike had ended, filming was suddenly pushed back another 3 months due to disputes over filming locations. Miller was keen to shoot the movie in his homeland of Australia, with an entirely Australian crew, but the country's government denied Warner Brothers a 40% tax rebate to help with filming, as they felt the production had not hired enough Aussie actors. But after that, the production problems all ceased and shooting went ahead swimmingly. Okay. Production was then shifted to Vancouver instead, with shooting set to begin in July 2008, with the goal of finishing in time for release the following summer. However, the constant production delays eventually drove Miller to drop out of the project completely, and following the critical and commercial success of The Dark Knight, Warner Brothers decided to scrap the movie altogether in favour of focusing on individual stories. And with that, Justice League Mortal was no more. Warner Brothers building up a big budget franchise only to scrap it completely? Never.
That's rude.
In 2013, following the release of Man of Steel, writer David Goyer was commissioned by Warner Brothers to write 2 more. One would be a sequel and the other a second attempt at a Justice League film. The Man of Steel sequel eventually became Batman v Superman, with the Justice League movie acting as the third of the trilogy, with Zack Snyder coming back to direct, and the majority of the cast reprising their roles, with the additions of Jason Momoa as Aquaman, Ezra Miller as The Flash, and Ray Fisher as Cyborg. So, to keep you on track, Batman v Superman is the second in a trilogy, despite Batman not actually being introduced yet, also foreshadowing The Flash, who also hasn't been introduced, and introducing Wonder Woman for the first time. Man, this franchise fucking sucks!
This is crazy.
However, in April 2015, Warner's felt that Goyer's script needed to be rewritten, and they hired Chris Terrio for the job. The man who would go on to write Jesus Christ, we're fucked!
This is a bad idea.
And it was also announced that the movie would be split into 2 parts, Harry Potter style, with the first set for release in November 2017. Snyder stated that both movies would be directly inspired by Jack Kirby's New God storyline in the comics, and that the films would be 2 distinct stories, rather than one long story awkwardly split into 2. I mean, kind of got his wish.
Okay.
Filming began in April 2016 in Leaves Den Studios in England, and so began quite possibly the most cursed production in the history of Hollywood. Due to the negative reception of Batman v Superman, Jeff Johns, the film's producer, who had just been appointed the head of DC Entertainment, would frequently rewrite the script to his own liking, causing him to regularly butt heads with the cast and crew. Further problems arose when Johns held a summit of multiple famed Hollywood writers where he screened some of the already shot footage, leading to even more rewrites taking place. However, things would only become worse in May 2017 when Zack Snyder's 20-year-old daughter Autumn tragically committed suicide, leading to the director completely stepping away from the project in order to be with his family. And then, from the depths of the abyss, there laid Smeagol, hell-bent on revenge. He had been lying in wait, rotting away in his lair, anxiously preparing for his time to strike. He had held the Ring of Power before, but it was taken away from him, and now he was ready to get his revenge.
Don't do that.
Joss Whedon was selected by Warner Brothers to oversee the film's production in Snyder's absence, but the studio was so unhappy with the footage that had been shot that they ordered another 2 months of reshoots in July 2017, with Whedon adding more humour and a brighter tone to the story. But this only served to make things worse for everyone involved. Firstly, Whedon was reportedly a nightmare to work with, constantly clashing with practically every actor on set over the changes to the script, rewriting scenes often hours before they were due to be shot, and at one point allegedly threatened to end Gal Gadot's career after she disagreed with some lines that he had written. We saw how well that worked for James Masters.
What do you mean? He doesn't have a career.
Well, yes, but he was the most popular character on the show.
But that's not what you said.
Yeah, but that's what I meant. He said it was going to ruin his career, but then he got so
You
popular.
always do this. You say one thing that's intentionally
Look,
wrong
people
just because
got
you
the
want to have
it
a
was
cheap
fine.
joke,
The
and
joke
then
was
someone
fine.
else
It
corrects
works.
you, and then
Okay, you
everything
always
turns
come
into
in
a
here and try
massive
and
war
ruin
in the
my fun.
comments.
So much bitterness.
On top of that, the cost of the reshoots caused the production budget to spiral to $300 million, making it one of the most expensive movies in history. It doesn't show.
Please don't ever say that to me again.
Furthermore, Henry Cavill had started filming Mission Impossible Fallout when the reshoots were announced, a role which required him to have a mustache. However, Paramount Pictures refused to allow Cavill to shave it off, meaning that even more money had to be spent digitally removing it from multiple scenes. And not very well. Look at it, this is inexcusable. And it's literally the first shot of the movie. I suppose at least they let you know straight off the bat what you're getting yourselves into.
That's not
By the time the film finally reached the editing stages, it was estimated that somewhere between 75 and 90% of the final cut consisted of new footage shot by Whedon. Additionally, following criticism about the length of previous DCEU entries, Warner Brothers demanded that the film's theatrical cut be no more than 2 hours, including credits, which led to a number of scenes being left on the cutting room floor. Cyborg in particular got the short end of the stick. Snyder had originally stated that his character was going to be the heart of the story, but when Whedon stepped in, he cut the majority of the character's scenes in order to center the story around Superman instead. Joss Whedon cutting out an African American character's backstory just to turn them into a lazy archetype? Never.
I'm impressed.
Don't be.
So after years of stop-starts, reshoots, rewrites, probably intoxications, and a whole lot of cutting, both wrists and in the script and editing, Justice League was finally shot onto our screens on November the 17th, 2017, and it promptly crashed and burned. The film only grossed $657 million worldwide, losing Warner Brothers an estimated $60 million, and it was universally panned by critics, fans, and casual audiences alike for its story, pacing, inconsistent tone, and CGI. Many critics called the film a Frankenstein's monster of a movie, the work of two very different directors competing for control of the picture. So the sequel trilogy.
I'll let you know.
Responses amongst the cast and crew weren't much better either, with many of them heavily criticising the film and especially their experience working with Joss Whedon. Joss's on-set treatment of the cast and crew was gross, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. He was enabled in many ways by Jeff Johns and John Berg. Warner Brothers are trying to distract from Ray Fisher speaking up about the shitty way we were treated on Justice League reshoots. Serious stuff went down, it needs to be investigated, and people need to be held accountable. I was shocked by the way that he spoke to me. You're dizzy because you can't believe this was just said to you. And if he says it to me, then obviously he says it to many other people. I haven't yet seen Zack's cut of the film. I shall have to hunt it out and see if I have it somewhere online or on a DVD. It certainly couldn't have been worse. It was really Justice League that was the nadir for me. That was a bad experience because of a confluence of things. My own life, my divorce, being away too much, the competing agendas, and then Zack's personal tragedy and the reshooting. It was just the worst experience.
Well, that narrows it down.
Chris Terrio, the original writer, was so dissatisfied with Whedon's edit that he demanded his name to be removed from the credits, calling the film an act of vandalism. While Snyder himself never saw the theatrical cut after both his wife Deborah and his good friend Christopher Nolan advised him not to, and the film was so bad Ben Affleck refused to ever come back as Batman. The backlash was so great that many fans took to social media demanding that the studio release Snyder's original vision for the film, starting the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut. Though Warner Brothers initially denied the existence of Snyder's original footage, this was eventually revealed to not be the case, and the director's cut of Zack Snyder's Justice League was finally released years later, which is for another time. But what I'll say for now is, how do you make 5 movies and they're all shit? How is that even possible? 5 and they're all shit? When has that ever happened? Hey, shut up.
What do you want from me?
You know, why doesn't Batman ever carry a stun gun with him or tranquilizers or something? I'm sure they'd come in handy. The movie is just all over the place and I feel sorry for it. It's rare that I actually sympathize with a movie, but I really do. I feel so bad for the poor thing. They are desperately trying to be Marvel and it's just pathetic.
I need warriors. I'm building an alliance.
Bland, monotonous actors. I'm carrying all of them on my back at the moment. Help me! The first act is so rushed. In the first 23 minutes, we are rushed introductions of 4 brand new characters. At the 11-minute mark, quick, this is Aquaman! 4 minutes later, it's the Flash! Who is apparently a 10-year-old now. Grown adults write this! And then 3 minutes after that, we introduced to Cyborg! And then 3 minutes after that, we introduced to the villain, Steppenwolf, who's basically B-Tech Thanos! We're 5 films into this shit pile, and we have a million characters we know nothing about! There is so much crammed into 5 movies, it is ridiculous. Well, I'm glad someone did. Even the Flash comes across as Tom Holland if you ordered him from Wish. Oh, I'm not kidding. In fact, almost every dialogue from Ezra Miller seems like they're trying to rip off Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And because of the reshoots taking place in 2017, there's a strong possibility that they did copy it from Civil War.
People are difficult. They require a lot of focus. They have like a rhythm that I haven't quite been able to... Like brunch. Like, what is brunch?
Oh, awesome. As a bat signal, that's your...
Oh, sorry. Wow, it's like a cave. Like a bat cave.
They even reference movies like Spider-Man.
Right, but we mean bring him back in like a yay, he's back way, not in like a Pet Cemetery scenario.
Well, Marvel did this thing, and people like Marvel, so if we do it, then people like us. In fact, there's a scene with Bruce and the Flash, and it's practically the exact same scene as Tony and Peter in Civil War, for fuck's sake! And Jason Momoa spends the whole movie trying to imitate Thor!
Whiskey. One for Ahab there.
Look from the sky. I heard a cannon.
To Ocean's Rage. Honestly, I think we're all gonna be dead way before that. And you know what? I don't mind.
Hell, they even stole Marvel's actors and made him shit. There's no energy or effort whatsoever. Although my brain just can't compute seeing J.K. Simmons in the same scene as Batman. And the comedy is so bad in this. How does Joss Whedon write bad comedy? It's the only thing you're good at, man! And you sucked at it!
The Aquaman. I hear you can talk to fish.
Okay, well, that line's not too bad.
I was wondering if you could put out a, the feeler, the aquatic, I mean, do you talk to fish?
And they killed it. The jokes are awful!
Thanks, Alfred. But I'll take it from here.
Do I know you?
You say a word about this, you'll meet every piranha I know.
I honestly didn't hear anything after We're All Gonna Die.
I mean, at least Affleck is actually trying, and he does sometimes get a laugh.
What are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
Yeah. Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
That's the best I got. Gal Gadot continues to suck, and don't you be blaming Joss Whedon for this performance. She was shit in a solo film too. Even when she doesn't have any lines, she pisses me off. Even when she's threatening the villain, she has the emotional range of a fish. Jesus Christ, lower the damn eyebrows! Oh, just look at that range from Gal Gadot. She is truly showcasing her acting background with this performance. What a phenomenal talent. I mean, don't get me wrong, she clearly earns her paycheck because look, here, she does smile quite a few times. Here, she even gives a wide smile. Oh, the poor thing must be exhausted.
Kal-El, no!
Jesus Christ, this is the woman that won over all of the auditions? Kal-El, no. He's butchering your friends! Act, you bitch! She has one face. She's clearly taken acting lessons from Keira Knightley. Oh, look. She's got them lowered eyebrows. Superhero stance sorted. She even gets out of a car with her eyebrows lowered. Why is she always so confused? Oh my god, she actually acted an emotion. Here, Gal Gadot, just have a sit down. I'm going to make you a nice cup of tea. You put your feet up, okay? You've had a long day. At least Henry Cavill isn't the blandest in the movie for once. Thanks, Gadot.
I've been reacting.
No, you really haven't. But Jesus, even he smiles. They're all busting out the stops in this one. I just love how this high-budget blockbuster movie has practically the exact same scene as the Meteor Man, which had the budget of a potato. And it's worse! And I just love how Bruce Wayne happily reveals his identity to anyone who could talk to fish. Look at this. Would you ever suspect that this movie has such a high budget? Look at it! I mean, granted, it still looks better than Indiana Jones 5, but that's like saying my testicular cancer looks better than your brain tumour. It's not a consolation. Although Cyborg looks like something out of a PS1 game. Jesus Christ, is this a high-budget DC blockbuster or level 1 of Tomb Raider? My god, his effects are just as bad. I feel like I'm watching Ed, and Eddie, not the fucking Justice League. Look at it, it looks like it was rendered on a Sega Saturn. God, what is this? Spy Kids? This is embarrassing. Spawn would cringe at this. The film is just boring. The Avengers worked so well because we had films to build up most of their origins, and the ones who didn't were fine to just fill in the gaps in between. But here, they're all thrown in randomly. The Avengers had them all meeting up to take on Loki for this big mission that was built up over the course of several movies. But here, well, you know, something's happened with Diana's people, and yeah, we're all together now, yeah, cool. So when you get this big underwater scene, it means nothing. Wouldn't this have been so much cooler if there were films building it up beforehand? Did they truly not understand why Marvel did so well? Which is extra surprising because it's the same cunt who directed 2 of the bastards! What a film when you've got abusive, racist and possible nonce Joss Whedon, woman beating abuser Ezra Miller, and man beating abuser Amber Heard all in one picture. It's like toxicity bingo. I mean, remember just how cool a moment it was when we first saw all of the Avengers together? Yeah, that was cool, wasn't it? And any film that reminds me of Jurassic World Dominion is a no-go for me.
See, I'm afraid of bugs and, guns.
Wait. Why is the Flash afraid of guns? He's faster than their bullets. It's like Aquaman being afraid of tidal waves. Even the fights are boring with sloppy editing and awkward choreography. I'm amazed it's even got to the shoot. I'm amazed it even got to the edit.
Sorry, guys. I didn't bring a sword.
You didn't bring any decent dialogue either. There's a scene where the Flash quickly zooms around and then just lightly taps a sword over to reach Diana, but it's treated like this big epic moment. It's so lame. And it's the exact same shot from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It also leads to the Flash accidentally landing face first onto Wonder Woman's tits, and this wasn't originally scripted. Whedon insisted it be included during the reshoots, but Gal Gadot refused to do it, and a body double had to be used instead, which is why her face isn't visible, and it isn't included in the Snyder Cut. Whedon also allegedly took some close-ups of Gadot's ass without telling her, which were also axed from the Snyder Cut. What a lovely man.
I don't believe it.
Oh, and you know how I was getting annoyed that every movie seems to be about Superman?
The world needs Superman.
4 out of 5 films, and it's all based around soups. I mean, resurrecting the bastard is just their way of finally completing the goddamn Jesus metaphor. Did you get that? He's fucking Jesus! This is the issue I have. I've heard some people say that this is worse than Suicide Squad, and I strongly disagree. It has a couple of funny lines, and it does have some good ideas hidden deep below the dog shit, which is more than I can say about Suicide Squad. There's a scene where Superman is brought back, but he doesn't remember who he is and struggles to contain his powers again. Now, this is quite a cool idea, and this alone could have been its own movie altogether. What would happen if Superman turned bad? It was covered for like half an hour in Superman 3, but evil Superman was just doing the most mundane and petty shit. And I guess Dawn of Justice touched on it slightly, but they didn't actually have him evil. Imagine on a big budget what they could do, especially considering they spent 4 goddamn movies building up the possibility. But here it's just crammed in at the 77-minute mark randomly, although it does have a couple of nice lines.
You won't let me live. You won't let me die. Tell me. Do you bleed?
But then that's it. Lois Lane shows up and he remembers. That is literally it. Their relationship has had absolutely no development whatsoever in all of these films, but sure, now he remembers. He remembers everything because of the power of love. A 12-year-old Disney princess wrote this. Yeah, you have all of the heroes do the generic power march like it actually means something. It's adorable. Do it again.
You're all too weak to see the truth.
Gee, I wonder what's going to happen. Okay, Superman and the Flash racing is pretty cool, and Flash saves some people, but Superman just lifts up the entire house. Okay, that was pretty funny. Also, you gotta love just how optimistic and how much faith they had in this shit.
Big round table. 6 chairs. Right there.
But room for more.
In fact, there's an end credit scene between Deathstroke and Lex Luthor, which was supposed to hint at the formation of the Legion of Doom, or the evil Justice League, in future movies, but this never materialized. Good. What a train wreck. And yet, it's still not the worst out of the bunch. Suicide Squad was a disaster on every level where not a single creative decision worked. Whereas here, I do think there are somewhat okay ideas buried beneath all the bullshit, but that isn't enough to save the movie. The acting is terrible, it introduces a billion new characters, the development is either rushed or non-existent, the comedy is arse, the effects are pathetic, and the whole thing just reeks of this sad excuse for a company desperately trying to be Marvel. I'm amazed that this shit-stained franchise was even able to continue after this. We are currently 0-5.